Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's your man, Big B, Brien Hanley. Again, welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. Look, today we are talking a big game that's coming up. There's a lot of big games in the Big 12 this weekend. To this one, we're covering Iowa State goes to Morgantown to take on West Virginia. So we've got Alec Busse, who covers Iowa State for 24/7 Sports. We're going to talk to him a little bit about the Iowa State perspective of this football game. Before we do, remember to always continue to like, follow, subscribe, continue to leave those comments and hit the notification bell so you know when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. So, Alec, first things first, man. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to, being able to break this game down a little bit because, I don't really know what's going to happen. So maybe I'll learn something from you.
I mean, it's crazy. The Big 12 is absolutely nuts. And everything that's going on is crazy. Even last week with Iowa State, got off to a little bit of a slow start against Baylor. And then they kicked it into overdrive when they needed to win the football game. I don't know that Baylor's that talented, but the one thing I'll say about Baylor, they haven't quit yet. They've lost a lot of games and in bad ways. We've seen it, but they haven't quit yet. But tell us a little bit as far as Iowa State. They got off to that slow start, and they've done that a couple of times this year.
Yeah, they were down 14-6 at one point in the first quarter to Baylor last week. And then the game kind of flipped on its head. Jaylen Jackson, Iowa State's emerging running back, really had a big impact on the game. I would say he finished with over 100 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. For the second straight week, he had at least a 50-yard run. Star receiver Jaden Higgins has now caught a touchdown in 7 straight games. And Jalen Knoll had a couple big receptions from Roco Beck as well. And at the same time, the Iowa State defense started to generate a little bit more pressure in the second half of that game against Baylor and allowed them to kind of really pull away throughout the third and, early parts of the fourth quarter. They took possession over with about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You could tell the game was kind of over at that point, just looking at the scoreboard, but Iowa State salted like 8 minutes off of the clock and then got a field goal to make it 43-21, which ended up being the final score.
Right. Iowa State is a really good football team. Let's not kid ourselves. But a lot of people out there are talking about, because they haven't necessarily played top-notch competition within the conference, how good are they? Is that a fair assessment so far?
Yeah, I think it's a question that you can certainly ask and observe when looking at them. They had a pretty soft non-conference outside of their annual game on the road at Iowa that they won 20-19. They had to overcome a 13-0 halftime deficit to the Hawkeyes in Kinnick Stadium to do that. I don't think Iowa is the team that we've seen the last couple of years that has maybe competed to win 9 or 10 games in the Big Ten. But I still think it's a team that's in a position to win 7 to 9 games. They're going to play close games as long as they're not playing an opponent like Ohio State, who beat them 35-7 a week ago. Right. But all things considered, I think that, their Big 12 schedule has been pretty soft. I think you could make a strong argument that Houston and Baylor are 2 of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the conference, and Iowa State handled those 2 opponents pretty easily by the end of the fourth quarter. So they haven't played a ton of great opponents. North Dakota at the FCS level, I believe, is ranked in the top 10 or 15. Arkansas State's expected to be in the top half of the Sun Belt, specifically the Sun Belt West. But those are all opponents that Iowa State should be better than, and especially the same with Houston and Baylor to open Big 12 play. So I think this is one of their first real big tests of the season going on the road at West Virginia.
Gotcha. So talk about a little bit about Roco Beck. He's quietly having a pretty good season, doesn't get a ton outside of the Big 12, and even within the Big 12. Some people talk about him, but he's not really one of the guys that people are talking about, and I think that he deserves more credit. I think he's one of the top quarterbacks in the conference, and again, he's quietly having a pretty good season.
Yeah, I think a lot of people talk about all the good quarterbacks in the Big 12. Or I think back to the preseason, the QBs that were discussed in the conference. It was a lot of Jalen Daniels at KU, Avery Johnson at K-State, Cam Rising at Utah, obviously Shedeur Sanders at Colorado, probably buried the lead there, not mentioning him at the top of the list. KJ Jefferson, even at UCF. Roco Beck, people forget, he was the Big 12 Offensive Freshman of the Year a season ago. The Athletic named him as a freshman All-American a season ago, and I think he's, for the most part, picked up where he left off last season. He has thrown a couple interceptions I'm sure he would like back, but he's got 2 dynamic receivers to help him, a really talented tight end in Ben Bramer. Rocco's a really good decision maker. He's accurate with the football for the most part, gets the ball out quickly to all of his playmakers. I think he is one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12. And people just don't talk about him because of the other names in the conference.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're right. The other names in the conference, I guess, technically are a little bit more flashy, but I know he's playing well and he's winning, which at the end of the day, that's kind of what we need to be talking about. Running back room at Iowa State. To me, one of the better running back rooms, not just in the Big 12 conference, but also in the country. Two guys that can really run the football, but maybe somebody that's emerging to be the better of the two running backs that most people didn't think was going to be the case. Alex, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Jaylen Jackson transfers in from Eastern Michigan in the offseason to kind of help Iowa State replace the duo of Cartavius Norton and Eli Sanders, who entered the transfer portal last year. I think everyone kind of expected Busse to become Iowa State's lead running back this season. He ran for about 600 yards, had about 5 touchdowns a year ago. But a lot of it came in just 2 games. He obviously had the 380-something yard performance against K-State with the 3 touchdowns, had over 100 yards and a couple scores against BYU and that bowl-clinching win that Iowa State had in the regular season last year. So his production was really boosted just from 2 games. And what you've seen this year is a lot of the inconsistencies and the struggles that he had as a freshman are still coexisting this year. And that's allowed Jaylen Jackson as a senior on his 3rd school, who started at Lamar, under-recruited, probably a little bit underdeveloped and undervalued coming out of high school, started at Lamar, transfers to Eastern Michigan, and is now at Iowa State. He's ran for close to 300 yards on the season, had over 100 yards last weekend, 2 touchdowns, is averaging over 6 yards a carry. He's quick. He's really sudden, really agile, and when he plants his foot, he knows exactly where he wants to go. He's a really good back, and I like the jolt of playmaking that he's given their offense, specifically on the ground. And I think you're going to continue to see him take a majority of the carries at running back away from Busse, as Carson Hansen gives them a little bit of a different dynamic as more of a power speed back who hits the hole and doesn't have the sudden agility that Jackson does.
Gotcha. So one of the things that makes Iowa State so good, obviously, is their defense. Going into this game, that's going to be something that's going to be tested because West Virginia can really run the football. Who are some of the big-time playmakers for Iowa State defense?
Yeah, up front, interior defensive lineman Dom Orange is someone that is a really good player. Those interior defensive linemen, they don't always post the most impressive numbers, but their role is really important, especially in stopping the run game. You also have Tyler Onyedum, J.R. Singleton on the defensive line. Singleton will play more on the interior, while Onyedum and Joey Peterson are more on the edge. At linebacker, it's a group that's really banged up, potentially missing 4 of their top 6 this weekend. If Cale Brzezina, a true freshman from Downers Grove, Illinois, isn't able to go, he would join a list that also includes Carson Willis, Will McLaughlin, and Caleb Bacon as linebackers are expected to be out. But for the most part, most of their best playmakers in the secondary, on the defense, start in the secondary. You've got all conference players in Bo Frailer and Jeremiah Cooper at the safety position. At corner, Darian Porter's really emerged for Iowa State this season. He missed the Baylor game with an undisclosed injury, but he really helped flip the Cyhawk game against Iowa in the Cyclones' favor early in the second half with a key interception. And then Jontez Williams in his redshirt freshman year, I believe, second year with the program. He's really emerged as a playmaking corner for Iowa State. He's got interceptions in back-to-back games. He's someone who the coaching staff really talked up in the offseason as a hard worker, a leader, someone that they really believed in, and he's certainly proven them correct throughout the first half of the season.
Gotcha. So going to Morgantown is never easy. West Virginia seems to have, after they blew that game at Pitt, they seem to have figured out some things as far as how they want to try to win football games. So tell me a little bit, or tell us, I should say, people a little bit about some of the keys that Iowa State needs to do to be able to beat West Virginia on the road.
Yeah, I think it obviously all starts in being able to stop West Virginia's rushing offense. If you're able to do that, you're probably going to have some good success because Garrett Green hasn't had the same success throwing the ball this year as he has in the past. Last year he was one of the more efficient quarterbacks throwing it downfield.
Right.
This year he hasn't had some of that same success. His completion percentage has gone down, which has forced Neil Brown to rely more on the C.J. Donaldson, Jakeem White duo in the backfield, as well as Green's dynamic playmaking with his legs. So if you can take away the pass for for the West Virginia offense and really, if you can take away the run and really force them to throw the ball, I think that will bode well for Iowa State. Then I also think, on the offensive side of the ball, it's get the ball to your studs, feed the studs, as Bobby Petrino, Arkansas's offensive coordinator, likes to always talk about. Get the ball to your best playmakers. I think Iowa State has some really dynamic guys who are capable of scoring for them. We mentioned Jaylen Jackson. Jaden Higgins at receiver has caught a touchdown in 7 straight games. That's a program record. Jalen Knowles, a tough cover, someone who has exploded for multiple explosive plays this season. I believe he had 2 catches of at least 40 yards last weekend against Baylor. And then tight end Ben Bramer has started to come on as he's gotten healthy. He had a really big catch last week for the Cyclones as well. So, yeah, for me, it's those 2 things. And then the third thing is, can you handle the environment? Iowa's a really difficult place to play. There's no sugarcoating that. Kinnick Stadium is a difficult place for a lot of people to go in there and get a win. And Iowa State was able to overcome a 13-point deficit at halftime to do it. West Virginia is going to be a similar situation, I would imagine, to what Iowa State experienced at Kinnick against their rivals. But it's going to be under the lights. It's going to be a night game, and it's a really big opportunity for the home team to get a big statement win, and I think really kind of reassert themselves on the Big 12 map after a 1-2 start to the regular season, but getting wins against KU and Oklahoma State to start the conference play 2-0, and everything's still in front of West Virginia at this point.
Gotcha. So to put you on the spot, I do it to everybody. I apologize, but I got to do it, man. Who wins this game on Saturday?
Yeah, with our 24/7 website at West Virginia, I picked Iowa State 27-24. Don't feel the most confident about the prediction. I don't think anyone can feel really confident about this game when picking it. It's a 3-point spread. What are you going to do? I think Iowa State's a better team. I think this team has a lot of swagger, a lot of confidence right now, and rightfully so. So I'll take the Cyclones to go on the road and get to 6-0. If they do that, this place is only going to get more excited up here in Central Iowa.
Absolutely. Well, Alec, man, thank you for giving us your time today. We appreciate it. We'll be right back on the other side of this quick break with Mike Casazza talking about West Virginia.
Welcome back to the show. Let's head back to the studio.
All right. We got Mike Casazza, who's joining us here for 24/7 Sports. He covers West Virginia. Mike, thank you for giving us the time today, my man. We appreciate it.
Anytime, man. How's it going?
It is going good, man.
Fast.
We're, right in the middle of this crazy Big 12 season, man, where things are upside down all over the place. It's just really just college football in general. I say the Big 12. I mean, last weekend was incredible as far as upsets were concerned. But getting into West Virginia, the first thing that I want to say is, that was just a bloodbath last week against Oklahoma State. Just an absolute bloodbath. What is West Virginia taking away from that? Because the perception is that Oklahoma State's not good. And I don't want to take any credit away because whether they're good or not, I don't care. That was still a bloodbath, and that was very impressive what West Virginia did.
Yeah, this won't make a lot of sense, but it's something like a measuring stick game, and West Virginia is better, subjectively, objectively better than Oklahoma State. Had to act that way, though. And so often in the past, West Virginia has kind of tripped and stumbled in those situations and really fallen into a trap. And I think what worried me about that game when I was looking at it was I didn't think that they were like 5 points close. I thought they were better than that. The initial points there was 5 points, and it went down and down and down toward West Virginia. But I'm just thinking, like, this is your Mike Gundy game where he's going to score first. He's going to get the lead at the half, and he's like unbeatable in the second half when he has the lead. And, Ollie Gordon can rest her in the open week. So get him going early, keep it out of Alan Bowman's hands, and just score 27 points and win.
Right.
That's a trap that, like, West Virginia in the past would take all the breadcrumbs and find itself deep in the woods with no way out. And that did not happen. Scored first, kept scoring, and then anything that Oklahoma State could have done to cause trouble, couldn't do. And, couldn't establish Ollie Gordon, had to lean on Alan Bowman. And that is the exact opposite of what Oklahoma State wanted and exactly what West Virginia wanted. And West Virginia made that happen. So they're not equal. They're better. But they were supposed to be better going into that game, and they proved that on Saturday.
Which is a good thing, like I said, because one of the things about West Virginia, they have to be kicking themselves right now thinking about that Pitt game that they just gave away, because I think the national perception of West Virginia would be a lot different right now. And just the perception in general, I think they were a better football team than Pitt. I still believe they're a better football team. But we got to move on, and it looks like they found a way to get back, and they're starting to build momentum. Is that kind of the feeling inside the complex there?
Yeah, needed a fresh start. Getting I think probably would have rather had the open week between Pitt and Kansas, but Kansas was like the right team at the right time, and maybe
Right.
Oklahoma State would have been good too. You could swap in, I don't know, Houston, TCU, somebody that they could beat. Kansas is useful because like that's supposed to be like this big bad offense that really gave West Virginia trouble before in 2022. That's kind of when Kansas first put itself on the map. That was against West Virginia's second game of that season. You're like, holy cow, this is not Kansas anymore.
Right.
So that was almost good because it really got you refocused right away. That Pitt ending is horrendous. It doesn't go away. And you could have sat in that for a week and come back after an open week and play, but it probably was good for them to get out there. And then Brian, just the way they won that game, the exact opposite of the way they lost it the week before.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just kind of shows you that these things happen sometimes in college football, over that they happen in such close proximity to West Virginia. To be on the wrong end of one game and then to do the exact opposite the next game, you can minimize your mistakes there, and you can really thump your chest in a victory. And then that open week comes after the Kansas game. Now you get to revel in a win, and the fact that, you know
Right.
what, we have a weird record right now, but we're better than this. So let's see what we can do. And then they really came out different, more explosive, and much better defensively against Oklahoma State.
Gotcha. Let's talk a little bit about Garrett Green and what he means to this West Virginia football team. You know, he doesn't have the big gaudy stats as far as throwing the football, but to me, he's just a gamer. He's just a gamer, somebody that goes out there and helps his team win more than not, puts them in a better position to win more than causing mistakes. Kind of talk to us a little bit about what he means to this West Virginia team.
Yeah, like super competitive guy. And for some situation that they're going to find themselves in, that they've already found themselves in, they really need somebody who can just kind of grab you by the face mask or grab the game by the shoulder pads and go. And if you watch that Kansas game, kind of erratic, I mean, maybe typical Garrett Green, you know, right around that 50% completion percentage, missed some layups and hit some half court shots. That's kind of what he does every so often. And what was weird, Brian, is he wasn't scrambling the first couple of games. And then
Right.
when that offense got going against against Kansas, drop back, you know, make one read, check it down, or drop back, make one read, forget the check down. I'm going to run 25 yards. I'm going to scramble
Right.
and get hit out of bounds and draw 15 more yards. And that's kind of the invigoration that they need from him. I just kind of think he is what he is. Could he be more efficient, more accurate as a passer? Sure. Is he going to turn into like Dylan Gabriel or Bo Nix and complete 75-80% of his passes? No. Is that what they want? I don't even know if that's what they want. I kind of like the explosion here. You throw a grenade and sometimes it's live and sometimes it's a dud, and you live with the results and you kind of keep going there. And I think they know that when they get in a situation where it's got to be fast and your quarterback has to do something,
Right.
sometimes outside of the lines, if he's got a color outside the lines, that's a good guy to have in your corner because he can certainly make something happen. And you know, he's done that repeatedly. And I think if you look past, you know, maybe the past 12 to 15 games of football, end of the half, end of the game, their 2-3 minute offense is very, very good. And he's a large part of that.
Gotcha. As far as the running back room, you know, we were talking on another podcast we did on the Big 12 Insiders earlier about West Virginia and what they bring to the table in the running game. This running back tandem that they have there, and you can throw Garrett Green, or you should throw Garrett Green in there as well. I think it's one of the best in the country, Mike. I'll be honest with you. Look, there's can be some others out there. Don't get me wrong. Ohio State, I don't think there's anybody as good as that, but I think West Virginia is right up there as far as a combination of everything included. Talk to us a little bit about how good this running game is, man.
Yeah, they're not going to trade with anybody they play the rest of the season,
No,
you know, until they get to the playoff, maybe. And I'm guessing if they
right.
get to the playoff, they're not going to trade. This is sacrilegious, Brian, but let me go. When they had Pat White and Steve Slayton and Owen Schmidt or Noel Devine back there, you kind of played a shell game where the ball came in there and then it was under one of the three cups and you didn't know which one it was going to go to. They haven't done a whole lot of that yet, but you saw some two back stuff, and they have option. They have like true triple option in their bag. Saw a little bit of that, and that's just like taste of what they can yet do. So there's more there, which is kind of, you know, to your point, they do a lot. They haven't done it all yet. And right now, they could really hand the ball off 40 times in a game, 20 to White, 20 to Donaldson, and you're going to get 20 different runs because
Gotcha.
one guy's 5'7", 195, and one
Right.
guy's 6'2", 240. Both guys think they can run through you. Both guys think they can run around you. One's better at it than the other, of course, but they run the same stuff, but one's maybe better inside zone. They run the same stuff. One's better outside zone. White has kind of developed this patience now, it looked like last week, where he ran a ton of gap stuff on counter and power plays. You think about that. That's something you would do if you're bigger back because he's a little bit slower to the hole maybe, or maybe he likes to square up against the safety because that power play takes the free defender out. If you do that with your little zipping back, that's dangerous, right? And he got in the open field a bunch. They schemed him up into open spots, kind of like you would with a receiver. And they kind of did that with some power play stuff and with some counter play stuff. That's a new wrinkle. You can do that. And then Donaldson's just a moose when he gets going. And if you give him 6 carries in a row, 8 carries in 2 series, 12 carries in a quarter, he doesn't necessarily slow down. The defense does. He doesn't necessarily slow down, but you can take him out. You can put White in. And then all of a sudden, lightning after thunder is how it's supposed to go, right? Or lightning before thunder is how it's supposed to go. But like lightning after thunder is really effective for West Virginia.
Yeah, I just that running game is like I said, you described it perfectly, saying they're not trading with anybody, and I don't think they should because I think it's one of the best out there. Look, defense, Josiah Trotter, freshman.
Yeah.
How good is this guy, man? I mean, you throw on the tape, Mike, and he's out there making plays all over the place. Talk to me about how good this guy is.
Right now, he's maybe their most valuable defensive player, which is a redshirt freshman, middle linebacker. And is that supposed to be the case when they have such great potential at the pass rushing positions? Like TJ Jackson is a guy they plugged in the starting lineup because of injury. For a while, he was leading the country in pressures. He's still top 10. Aubrey Burks is a really valuable defensive back for them. Anthony Wilson maybe has played as above expectation as anybody in their free safety spot. But right in the middle of it all is where you want to have your guy because he ties the front to the back, and he's been somebody really good. I think he could probably get better moving, and I think he moved more confidently in zone drops and read and react stuff the more you play. So he'll get better there. Athletically, I don't think there's the question. He gets from sideline to sideline pretty fast, and he makes plays. He'll be a guy who makes plenty of solo tackles, but he'll be a guy who makes a lot of assisted tackles because he gets to the ball and he figures out where he's got to go and how he's going to get there. And some of that's genetics, Brian, and he's just got that on the side because of his dad and his brother.
Correct.
And here's a guy that you thought last year was going to be good, and he hurt his knee and he's out for the year. And you wonder, one of those things, the defense struggles. You're like, you know what, that guy would have played. We miss him this year. And does an injured guy become like 20% better because he can't play? Maybe. I think, a skeptical person could say that. He's better than advertised, and they advertised him a lot this year, and he's made a difference so far. For him to be playing in a position where they do have depth, they have guys they brought him in the transfer portal, guys they've signed and really developed and and he's just not coming off the field right now. He's that important to what they do.
Gotcha. Yeah. Like I said, you turn on the tape and he's just making plays all over the place. Let's dive a little bit into this game coming up. I mentioned that we talked to Alec Busse from Iowa State earlier, and, I said this was kind of a legitimacy game. Both teams coming in, the teams that they have beaten maybe don't have the gaudy records or anything. So it's kind of a, if we win this game, you can't say anymore that we haven't beaten anybody any good. And it goes for both teams, because right now that's kind of what people are saying, especially Iowa State. Even though they beat Iowa, I'm just not sure people look at Iowa the same, especially after last week's drubbing. And you could say the same thing about West Virginia, but you're not going to be able to say it, Mike, if they win, either team wins this game coming up. Like I said, it's kind of a legitimacy game of, hey, you know what? We're here. We're a pretty good team, and we just beat a pretty good team.
Agreed. The one thing I get from West Virginia fans or people who look at this and kind of lean toward West Virginia is, hey, they played a better schedule. True. They didn't beat Penn State. They didn't beat Pitt.
Right.
Qualify those however you want. First game, should have had the Pitt game, whatever. Didn't happen. It didn't.
Right.
Yeah, Iowa State hasn't really played anybody right now.
No.
They're going to have to beat somebody good. And like West Virginia is unquestionably the best offense they've seen. And I look at Iowa State stats, and I'm looking like, oh, wow, that's impressive. Top 10 this, leading the country in that. And I know what the John Heacock off defense is. It's what it's supposed to do, and it looks like it's what it's doing. I have no idea if they're good, Brian.
Right.
I don't know. And I look at some of their numbers here I've jotted down, but like some of these teams they played, like total offense, like 3 teams are 93 or worse in total offense. Well, maybe that's
Correct.
why Iowa State's total defense is so good. And then, yeah, Iowa State's, I think, leading the country in turnovers forced. 3 of the teams are 98 or worse in committed turnovers.
Yeah.
How much of that is Iowa State and how much of that is the opposition? West Virginia, their thing is to hold on the ball, stack up yards, stack up plays, stack up possessions, get it in the red zone and go. Iowa State does not let you get yards. Their yardage is always low. They don't see a lot of snaps. They hardly ever let the ball get in the red zone. So it is going to be a contrast of will on offense and defense, I think, to how to determine this one. But I can't get past the fact that this is going to be if Iowa State's offense could beat West Virginia's defense. I just laid out the case for why West Virginia's offense and Iowa State's defense is really intriguing to me. I kind of think they're going to meet in the middle on stuff. I could definitely see Iowa State's offense getting the better of West Virginia's defense. However, West Virginia's defense has behaved a lot differently the past 2 weeks.
And that's what it is for me is, is Iowa State's offense, can it beat West Virginia's defense? I don't know. I know it's going to be a heck of a football game. That's the one thing. And I keep coming back to the legitimacy point, but you're exactly right. Iowa State just has not played anybody. And when you say that, Mike, people look at you and they think that you're bad-mouthing another team. It's like, look, can we just be honest and just say what would actually happen? That doesn't mean that we have to be bad-mouthing somebody. I think that's more of a societal thing these days. But I'm looking forward to this game. I think the winner of this can legitimately say that they're one of the best teams in the Big 12 because, again, they will have played somebody. Put you on the spot, Mike. Who wins?
I really like West Virginia in this. I felt good about them last week. There were, like I said, there were things I was worried about because the typical Mike Gundy get your team to an open week path was there, and West Virginia said, no, I'm going the other direction. I just like their maturity. I like the fact it's just a home night game at 8:00, and I like the fact that they've kind of been in this environment before overall.
Right.
I just think that if they can get this game going and they get hot early, all the second half magic of Iowa State's defense conjures up, you take that away from them. I expect West Virginia to be really aggressive with its opening script and to try to go and steal points whenever they can. And I would just watch out for that defense confusing, bouncing between cover 2, cover 3, dropping their middle guy like Trotter and forcing Beck to do something out of character. That guy's really smart, doesn't make mistakes, but it's going to be a different environment for him.
Yeah, it will be. Can't wait for the game. Well, thank you, Mike. Again, we appreciate you giving us your time. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Remember, like, follow, subscribe, continue to leave those comments. We appreciate you. We will talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.